And Roger, I think we excuse me, are live.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the porch.
Welcome to the porch.
As I do my normal stuff to try to make sure we are going out there.
It's good that we have somebody with some technical knowledge on this show because Dr. Rhodes, little bit of technical knowledge. In other words, I know how to turn it on. That's my technical knowledge. Thank goodness Rick knows how to get it to run, or we would be. And,
Okay, there we go. We're going.
Okay, here we go.
So before, again, as we start letting people know we're going out live again, you were mentioning that you got a rebroadcast of, is it Peggy Denny coming?
Yeah, the Peggy Denny Show.
And that's on the
28th at 1 o'clock on Channel 16 locally. So I encourage people to watch that. Peggy is a lovely individual. And, you know, that's probably something I need to tell our audience. I have seldom seen people on TV, and if you met them live, we're different. You know, I've met this person. Peggy is the same in person as she is on TV. Jack Roper is the same. Megan Heidelberg is the same. They're good people. They're nice people. They converse and interact with you and other people just in a regular way. They're not haughty, and they're lovely people. So if you've ever wondered that, I certainly want to answer that for you. Good people on TV, good people in real life.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. And the fact that, you know, instead of even like you said, you could be out, and if you see any of those just out about town, they're more than happy to talk to you.
Oh, without a doubt,
Yep.
without a doubt. I mean, they just are good for let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk.
Yep.
You know, they are very gracious, wonderful people, and you know, people would have you believe that people on TV have quote unquote an attitude, and these people do not have an attitude. They are genuinely good people.
Although you're the one who won't talk to people when they see
Yeah,
you.
man. I'm the exception to the rule. I don't like anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anybody. It's more the other way around. People don't want to talk to me. Oh my goodness, that's the truth. That is the truth.
You know, today we said we were going to speak a little bit about the holidays. Of course, a lot of people at this time of year do different broadcasts. You see it on the national news, you see it on the local news, you see it on the Facebook Live pages about the stressors, which are true. But you really want to come from a position today of talking more about expectations and how do we, handle those expectations, and how do we keep functionality as best we can within the holiday times, within our families and within our business groups, through the expectations versus just going into it with the idea that we're already stressed out, we're going to be stressed. And
yeah, you know, one of the things that I've noticed as I've grown older is how people wind themselves up for the holidays. You know, they have so much concern, so much worry, so much trepidation about the event of Thanksgiving, the event of Christmas, the event of New Year's, that it's near impossible for them to have a good time because they're so wound up. They have so many negative expectations of what might happen. They didn't do this well enough, that well enough. And for the most part, what I've seen of people who come to a holiday moment, they're just appreciative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's a big thing or a little thing, the fact they're part of a thing is important. Or the other side would be that they're not part of a thing and they're disturbed about that. But how we build up going into the holidays is a big deal. We really want to encourage our audience to not do that, to set some healthy boundaries, to let people know what is expected during the event, and to have that covered before. You know, many times people don't let people know, and so people show up being what they always are, And one of the problems with that, Rick, is what they remember is when you were little bitty, or what you remember a lot of times is when you were little bitty. And we're not geared to, wait a minute, what about 2017? Where are we today? What is reasonable to celebrate today?
Mhm.
And when I see people who are celebrating in the day, happier people, emotionally happier, physically happier, mentally happier. It's just a wonderful event, but they're celebrating 2017, not 1980.
Right.
And I think that change there disturbs a lot of people and creates for a less than positive holiday experience.
You know, and I go back, of course, to the movie with the Griswolds at Christmas.
Classic.
Yeah.
I love that movie. Christmas with the Griswolds.
And
Woo!
of course, what created everything bad there was the fact that he had the expectation it was going to be the perfect holiday. And what we're saying is don't go in there with the expectations that everything's going to be perfect. Go in there with the expectations, like you said. Just appreciate and be mindful of the moment we're in. And yeah, Aunt Sally's going to be Aunt Sally. Uncle Pete, and just the expectation that if we invite Aunt Sally and Uncle Pete, they're not going to change for us.
But what they can, though, that's what I want to say here, Rick, is Aunt Sally is going to be the old Aunt Sally unless we help her with the today Aunt Sally. If we say, Aunt Sally, we know what you were like in 1980. And we're not saying that's good, bad. We're just saying we need 2017 Aunt Sally to show up. And we want you to be clear of what the rules are. You know, that some people come in and say, you know, I can remember back in the day where I was running with a bunch of friends and we had a beer in our hands and we had been out partying and we were getting ready to walk in our house. And my mother came to the front door and said, what do you guys want? And I was astounded. I said, well, we want the house. And she said, well, not with alcohol. You know, in this house, we don't have alcohol. Now, we're not saying in your house, if it's alcohol, it's okay, good. Walk in, drink, do whatever you want. But in this house, she set a boundary.
Yeah.
She communicated the boundary and asked us to respect the boundary. We did. Everybody had a great time. You know, we left the beer outside. We stopped that kind of activity and we went in and we had the activity for the people who own the house. And I think when people don't know what the boundary is, let people be whoever they are, then what happens right there is chaos and confusion and lots of hurt feelings.
So what do you do when somebody is just going to be themselves and no, they're just there for a couple hours and don't?
Well, first thing you do is do not ever correct people in front of a crowd.
Right.
Don't ever do that. That's bad. That's a bad move. What you want to do is you want to say, excuse me, you know, Uncle Bill, Aunt Mary, whoever, can we talk? And look to remove them from the crowd to a separate bedroom, to outside, to wherever, and give them a choice. Say, you know, in here, this is the rule. Now, if you want to obey the rule, you're more than welcome. If not, we would prefer you go on with your day. But you give them a choice. You don't put a demand on them more than you have a choice to obey or not obey. And maybe you weren't aware of the rule. So you come with them from, they may not have the knowledge to make the correct decision. And when they're not under the pressure of the crowd, they're free to make whatever choice they want to make. They can, but if they don't want to follow and they want to come in, what they're doing then is they're picking a fight.
Yep.
And then that's, again, if they're picking a fight, then you graciously ask them to leave.
And then how do we help those that are going into it with the expectation it's got to be perfect and the mac and cheese gets a little burnt, or the turkey takes a little bit longer than they thought, or the person that was going to bring over the cherry pie forgot the cherry pie? So how do we help those people understand that, set the expectations that are realistic and not?
Well, first of all, it's what we're doing now. We're bringing it out. We're making it known. So you talk about it. But one of the things is monkey see, monkey do, Rick.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm the main monkey, I exhibit flexibility. When I exhibit the lack of flexibility, the other monkeys are going to watch me. And they're going to have lack of flexibility too, and things don't go well. Then what people embrace is rigidity and disappointment, because nobody's going to have a perfect holiday. I've never been part of a perfect holiday. There is, in my thoughts, no such thing as a perfect holiday. But if people get OCD in their thinking, they try to produce the perfect holiday. You know, that's the Griswold Christmas. It's a setup for disaster. But it's important for me to decide which monkey am I. Am I one of the also ran monkeys, or am I the main monkey? And if I'm the main monkey, I need to embrace the fact that other people are watching me. They're watching how I'm handling things. And I'm not only doing it for me, I'm doing it for the entire household. And so when the main monkey, whoever that might be, is flexible, you know, in my world back in the day, that had been my grandmother. If my grandmother was okay with the mac and cheese being burned, I mean, internally she might have not been happy with that, but to us, didn't matter.
Yeah.
If everything wasn't produced in a hallmark manner, didn't matter. And so we picked up on that message, and it didn't matter to us either. What did matter was manners.
Mm-hmm.
that was not. It wasn't good to have any bad manners. Ooh. And that was frowned upon, and that was spoken to. But as far as this other stuff, it was not a big deal, and we received that message. We followed that message, and it made the event much more pleasurable.
I'm just trying something out. We have a new feature I noticed today on the live feed. Facebook is now allowing us to enter the chats, which we've been wanting to do from day one, where we could get multiple people in here. And I'm just trying to find out, since I've never been exposed to this before. I just got to learn to type faster.
Man, I'll tell you what, I was fascinated the other day, Rick, was at Fuddruckers, and there was a preteen in front of me who was carrying on a full bore conversation with her friends and typing with both thumbs at full speed. I was amazed. I was like, I cannot believe at what speed this child is typing and also talking. She was multitasking in the line at Fuddruckers. And I said, man, I would have to say, excuse me, I got to go outside. I got to get in my car, and I got to use one finger. That's how I would operate. I was fascinated by that. But I think that kids who or anybody who focuses on that, works on that, can get it done. It's amazing, but it's a skill set.
It is a skill set. So we'll see if anybody else logs on and try it. But yeah, this is kind of, and we'll get back on topic, but I'm just kind of excited about this.
Yeah, you got me off all that time for that.
This is, what Roger and I were hoping for, a feature like this where we can get multiple people, not through the comment section, but also through the chat section, going. And so, yeah, I'm just glad to see that.
Yeah, putting their input in, that's the porch is about input. It's about conversations between people. It isn't we're the beginning and end of everything. We're the experts. No, we're two people in conversing about an issue that seems at the forefront of our lives today. We're talking about the expectations of the holidays because we're seeing people who are already wound up about the holidays. They're already stressing about the holidays. They're already breaking out because of the holidays. And so we're trying to encourage people to back off a little, to tone it down a little bit, to provide clarity and boundaries and be clear with other people, and that it's a setup for failure if I believe if other people cared about me, they would get what they need to do. No, that's ridiculous. That's not what people do. People are going to show up who they are, and they have their own set of rules and their own way of operating. And you certainly were part of that if you were little. But if you're not little anymore, then you don't need to act little anymore, and you don't need to respond little anymore. And because of that, many holidays are ruined because people aren't willing to step up and draw the line. And I think one of the things we want to do on the porch is encourage people before the day of the holiday to be clear about their boundaries. And if they are, they're happier, and the people who interact with them are happier.
And, I think the other thing that we can do that is healthy and helpful for us too is if we realize that the holidays are stressful for us, instead of trying to fight the idea that we shouldn't be stressed out and that we should be able to get everything done, is to accept that, hey, this is a stressful time for me. And when we start learning to accept our reality, then we again have the opportunities to deal in a healthier function with it. It's when we try to refute the idea of the reality that holidays are stressful for us. But just a simple mind shift of saying, I accept that it's stressful and that I don't have to have everything perfect. That, I'm going to, if Mary's going to come over, we'll try to set boundaries with her. But if we don't, then we'll have that conversation. But, everything doesn't have to be in a perfect condition.
Well, I guess the one thing we're saying here, Rick, is don't have family guessing. Don't have loved ones guessing what's going on and rotating in your mind of perfection. Be conversing with other people, touching base with other people, communicating with other people. And sometimes is that going to be uncomfortable? Yes. And are you going to possibly offend some people? Yes. But what we're saying is, if you step out and do that, the moment of the holiday brings in much more flexibility, and with much more flexibility comes happiness and less stress.
Mm-hmm. Well, how about you, Roger? Do you enjoy the holidays? Do you get stressed by the holidays?
Well, I guess the one thing I would say about the holidays is I've learned from the holidays. I can remember, now again, back in the day, when I went home. My home is in Oklahoma, and my parents were at this time alive, and my daughter was a small child. And so we went home for Thanksgiving. And so I took my daughter with me, it was me and my daughter, and we flew into Oklahoma City. And we got off the plane and met everybody. And we went home. And my daughter pulled me aside and said, "What's wrong with you?" There's nothing wrong with me. And she said, "You're acting weird." And I said, "What?" And then I realized when I was around my family, I reverted back to
Mhm.
when I was little bitty.
Mhm.
This disturbed my child who had never seen me act that way. And I didn't get that I had changed. And so, again, that was a holiday. That was a learning experience. I had to work on showing up at that time at what age I was and what my role was in life now. I was no longer little Roger. I was Father Roger.
Right.
I was no longer little Roger. I was adult Roger. And so holidays have always been a challenge and a learning experience for me, which I believe 2017 will be. I'm now a grandfather, and I'm a grandfather in the South, and I'm going to somebody else's house, and I need to be respectful of their structure and their rules, and be a part of that, and not try to come in and say, it's Roger's world. Everybody needs to be what Roger wants it to be, and Roger needs to do this, and filter everything through Rogerisms. I think that's a setup for disaster. And hopefully, come Thanksgiving, I'm not going to do that. How about you?
Well, same. I mean, we do the same things. Where you guys go to Marissa's, we're going to go over to Crystal's house, and I look forward to that. And that's one of the things I do enjoy. I try to stay in the background, but with the grandkids now, I try to make sure I get to spend that time with them and start building those memories. And fortunately, I think I'm fairly flexible. We'll eat when we eat. We have snacks when we have snacks, and so forth. And I really, right now, I look forward to just getting the time to spend with the grandkids and kind of stay in the background. Hopefully, I stay in the background, not to be in anybody's way. And just as far as the Thanksgiving, just overeat, overindulge, be gluttonous for one day.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that's paramount in my mind, the one concept beyond flexibility, which is what you're talking about, which I think I love and is great, is respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it bothers me when people are disrespectful to others, house and food and preparation. That genuinely disturbs me. And I don't want that to come from me. I want them to know I am thankful and respectful and aware, not my house,
Mm-hmm.
not my preparation. I'm part of it, but I'm respectful of them. And I want them to walk away not thinking that I tried to parent them. I think that's easy to do, and people do that not thinking. And in the old days, I believe that was normal. I think that my grandparents, until they died, were parenting my parents. And they had a parent attitude, and they had a parent presentation, and they expected my parents to kowtow to their desires. And so that always created a certain element of tension, needless tension. And that's, I guess, part of what we're talking about on the porch today, needless tension. We're willing to own that there's going to be some tension because these people don't live together anymore, and they're not the same age anymore, and they may not even live in that part of the country anymore. But if people come in today's date and where they are today, and they're respectful and flexible, it's hard for me to imagine, Rick, that they're going to have a funky holiday. That's hard for me to grab. I guess that could happen. I'd have to see it to believe it. But most issues happen because of expectations. People have unrealistic expectations.
Well, that's what. Yes, unrealistic expectations.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
And there's some people. Another thing that bothers me is there are people that had a fight about some 20 years ago, and they're still burned about it. And so they're never around that person, so it's never an issue. But 20 years later, I might have misspoken with Uncle Bill. Bill shows back up, and the fight starts back over. The offense starts back up. And it's like, oh my, I would think we'd let that go, but we haven't spoken of it. We haven't given it air. We haven't worked through it before we walk into the event. And it's like it just happened. And that kind of dynamics causes people a lot of stress, unresolved tension between individuals.
Yeah, and again, I think our life lesson out of that is when we go back to the ability to recognize what do we have control over and what we don't have control over. And if somebody comes in with an attitude or bringing something from 20 years back, and if they don't want to release it, then we don't really have any control over that. So what we do have control over is, again, our reactivity to it. And maybe something as simple, just tell yourself, consider the source.
Well, and I love what you're saying there, Rick. Control. The focus of control. Boy, that is so powerful. And boy, when I was young, nobody owned that. Nobody recognized that. Nobody talked about that. The thought was control everything.
Mm-hmm.
Control, and hopefully the more you control, the better life's going to be. And what we found as life gone on, that's a bad concept. It was a bad paradigm, and it doesn't work. No, it's control the controllable.
Correct. Yeah.
Work on your stuff and get your hands off other people, and especially if what they're doing is in their head. That's what really kills me, Greg, is that a lot of junk is in people's heads. People ruminate and make up stuff and redo history. And that they have designed themselves for a fight that doesn't even exist. But they're coming in with their dukes up. They're ready to go, buddy. Here we go. That is a setup for failure. It's a setup for problems. And it's why so many people don't like the holidays coming, because it puts people who are usually not together together.
Yep.
And real close together. You know, and this is one thing. You know, I lived up in Illinois for 3 years, and wow, the holidays, I will generally say, were harder up north than they are down south. And the reason being, you couldn't get out of the house; it's so cold. And so all these people came in and crammed into the house, and they were there all day. There was nowhere for them to go until they left. And so people you were not spending any time with, you were spending 8 hours with. And I'm telling you, that the veneer of being happy and grateful and thankful, it wore thin very quickly. But in the South, one of the good things I love is the weather's pretty mild. And so what people do when the veneer gets a little thin, they go outside. And especially, I love, one of the things I saw in our culture was people went hunting. Yeah. Hunting was a great thing. They didn't ever hit anything. They never killed anything. They never brought anything back. But they walked in the woods and had an attitude adjustment. And they went out hunting, and I mean, they were tight. And by the time they'd walked around in the woods and acted like they were hunters, they came back and they were just in a better mood. And they were more palatable to how things needed to be. And so the holidays were always better post-hunt in the culture I grew up in.
And then this holiday here, like I said, here in Greenville, I just looked, it's going to look like mid to high 50s, so it's going to be nice again on Thursday. And so if you're not hunting, you still just go outside.
Well, jacket weather and walk down the block. Yeah. We don't have to hunt anything. But I am encouraging people to get out of the house. You know, if nothing else, get in the car and drive around the block. Makes you a better person around people you're not normally around. It is very difficult. And people were a different age the last time. They were in a different place of life. They were financially in a different place. And all of that ties into how they relate. And we don't put that into consideration. You were this way 20 years ago. This is the way you ought to be today.
Yep.
Wow.
And if they didn't cook your favorite foods, I know there's a lot of my favorite Chinese restaurants are open on Thanksgiving, so you still got Chinese as an option.
But if you do, then the people who have cooked food are going to be offended. Remember that. I mean, if you get it somewhere, eat it there. Don't bring it back. It's these kind of things, and that's about consideration. That's about respect. You know, it's important to have consideration and respect during the holidays. Huge, important to have. And that people have invested time, money, and energy to present something. If you don't like it, don't eat it. You know, I can think of Suzanne's a favorite dish. It's not my favorite, but man, if she doesn't cook it, everybody makes a deal about it. Oh, I can't believe you cook this. So it's loved by hundreds of people. I'm just not one of those 100.
Well,
and so I just graciously, nicely say, I won't be eating this. And I don't make a big deal about it. I just don't put it on my plate. And I am glad other people do, and they seem to be happy and consume it, scrape the plate.
And to my friend from Belize who's been sharing with me what your food is at Thanksgiving and keep getting my mouth watering, and it sure does sound good. Hint, hint. Actually, I won't be seeing you over the holidays, so I guess I'll have to eat it.
Well, you won't get that then.
Yeah, no Belize.
But you can enjoy the memory, but it's important to leave the memory where it is. What happens a lot of times is we ate this 10 years ago, and then today it's not served. I'm gonna pout.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have an attitude because you're not serving it this moment. Ooh, if you look for it to be served, make an effort to call the person who makes it and request it long enough ahead of time for them to possibly provide it, or at least to have a good excuse of why they didn't. But what happens is they need to know, they should know that I love this and that I am anxiously waiting for you to produce this. And here's another thing. In my memory, this person loved this particular dish, when in fact, the truth might be that person never cared about it but kept their mouth shut. And now you're going to come back in with an unrealistic expectation and a setup for failure.
And again, God blessed me with the fact that I like about everything. So I don't care.
Give me all of it.
Yeah, I don't care what they bring. Just bring it.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Lord. This is good stuff. Yeah, buddy. There's no one. I think about what we used to eat. I'm amazed that all of us hadn't died from a heart attack. Man, we used to eat some terrible stuff for us, but it was good. You know, just because something tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you. That's one thing I found out through the ages.
Unfortunately, I think it's the opposite, isn't it? The better it tastes, the worse it is.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's the way it seems like it. You know, and the one thing I'm accused of, if I like it, there's got to be too much sugar in it. I like things sugared up. I can remember, boy, here's a memory. I can remember my grandfather putting sugar on fried eggs. And let me tell you, sugar on fried eggs, that's some good stuff. Now, he'll give you a heart attack, but it doesn't take away from it being good stuff.
Yeah, I was just sharing that. Interesting about grandfather's eggs. Mine was he ate ketchup on his scrambled eggs.
Oh, yeah, I remember that too.
And I started doing that for a while.
Yeah.
What you learn from your grandfathers sometimes.
Yeah. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. But a lot of times, you just, and I think this is kind of the change to 2017, there's things you just need to say no to. It doesn't mean it didn't taste good. It didn't mean you didn't like it. It doesn't mean you didn't want it. But some things you just have to say no to because the future effects are so bad for you that you learn to say no as a boundary to take care of yourself.
All right, so I'll say no to the collard greens, and I'll say no to the broccoli.
Yeah, yeah. Collard green definitely. Broccoli I like, but not a lot of. I'm a little on the about the greens. You know, that's not my favorite food category. But again, that's about culture. And you know, again, if you kind of like it, get a little bit of it. If you don't like it, keep your mouth shut. Move on. Don't put it on your plate. I am fascinated by people who put stuff on their plate and don't eat it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, why'd you put it on your plate? Well, I wanted to be gracious. No, you're just betraying the person who's making it, and someone else may have loved that, but you took it, and so they can't even enjoy it because it's not even there and available anymore. But I think that kind of part of what we're talking about, Rick, is the setup of the holidays.
Yeah.
That expectation is a killer. It makes holidays so miserable for people. Is because they've got in their mind, and I love how you're saying the Griswolds, because that is a comedy movie about Christmas expectations and how ridiculous.
Unrealistic Christmas expectations.
I mean, they were ridiculous. Yeah. They were ridiculous. And then on the other side, to make it funny, anything that could go wrong went wrong. Anything that was an expectation, it became a problem. And you found humor in that. Now, if you're in the middle of it, there's no humor in that. It's a bad moment. And we're trying to encourage people to communicate with each other. Since, you know, today's Tuesday and Thanksgiving's 2 days away, yeah. We're giving you enough time, if you're watching this show, to communicate with people, to be clear about people, and let them be clear about you. And we believe communication keeps people from hurting each other's feelings or from having your feelings hurt. If people know what you expect and you let them know what you expect, fewer hurt feelings, fewer anxieties around that.
Well, again, that's where expectations can also be set realistically. It's interesting. If we don't ever communicate, then again, we're going to be always, I think, upset, or something's going to happen because someone's going to do something that is going to be upsetting. But if you communicate the expectations, even for something like a Thanksgiving Day, you know, we're just going to come over, we're going to have fun. Whether you want alcohol, don't want alcohol, whatever in your house is all fun. But if you set the expectations and help people understand, you know, it always is better to the end result.
Well, and I've seen so much of the time people's feelings being hurt in the atmosphere of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that people purposely offended people. What I see more is the people say, I didn't know this was offensive to you. I didn't know you took offense at this. I didn't know this was a problem. And the other person say, you should have known.
The mind reading.
Oh, the mind reading is a terrible behavior during the holidays, and it's a setup for failure.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, if there's anything we can encourage people to do, please don't mind read. If you wonder, ask. If you're not sure, tell. Communicate will make all the difference in the world.
And remember, communication involves listening, so make sure that's part of your communication style, is that you're truly listening to understand what somebody might be sharing with you or telling you.
Right. This is not a new area of debate.
Yeah.
That's what people do. They listen to debate. They're like little junior lawyers. They're listening, boy, they're looking for all you got to do is take a breath. And then and they're on it. And you're like, oh, hey. What I hear people say, man, I'm sorry I brought that up. Well, I poked the bear, and then things just got worse from there. That's not what we're encouraging. We're looking at true communication, talking, listening to understand, for clarification. And we believe at the base of that, happier people.
Mm-hmm. And, just, I guess, to extrapolate that out a little bit more on the communication side, is when you do get into those discussions, one simple rule about the speaking side of it is just remember to speak from the perspective of self. If you finger point or use the you, people are going to become defensive. So just always think about talking from perspective of self. I feel, I saw, I thought.
Yeah, I always loved when I initially heard that, the concept of the minute you use you, the other person immediately jumps into what's called white noise.
Mm-hmm.
They don't hear anything. They don't understand anything. They just go blank.
Yep.
When you start you, because they know at that point you've moved into blame. And I found wait a minute, I found no one who loves to be blamed. I've never found anybody. Oh, blame me. That's what I want. I want people to blame me. Yep. I've never found that.
And I haven't either, Roger. So then I guess that means we have to use the perspective of I.
Yes. What Rick's talking about there is ownership. When you say I, you're taking ownership. And, well, that's a powerful place to come from. And amazingly, people listen better to you when you take ownership, and they don't listen to you at all when you blame.
Yeah. And just delivery versus, I thought you were going to bring the cherry pie, and I brought the cherry pie, and so we were going to have two, but now we have only one, versus I thought you were going to bring the cherry pie. All right, and then the you will put them on the defensive, but talk from perspective of self, and then that's where you can then communicate. Well, I misunderstood that.
Right, and the other thing that I'm saying here, Rick, is maybe from 2016 back, cherry pie was available, but in 2017, no cherry pie.
Yep.
And that's okay. We don't have to repeat. We are not chained in to past holiday celebrations. 2017 should stand on its own. We should create 2017 as 2017. And that may be the 2017 no cherry pie celebration, or it may be the 2 cherry pies celebration, but it's unique to the day that
Exactly.
it's happening.
And let's go back to how you opened it up. I do think sometimes we get stuck in this idea of what we think it should be because of the 1980s or when we were 8 years old. But guess what? Both our families have changed and grown, and the dynamics of the families today are different than they were a year ago.
Woo!
They're different than they were 10 years ago. They're different than they were 30 years ago. And this is the mindfulness of the moment to be celebrated, and to be celebrated in 2017. Don't, exactly what you said, don't celebrate it as a 1980 event.
Yeah, and I think about your daughter, Crystal, and my memory immediately goes back to when she was in middle school. But today, she's a grown adult.
Mm-hmm.
She's married. She got kids. Well, that's how drastic things changed. I mean, wow. And that seems to have happened in the wink of an eye. I'd like to say, well, now I know realistically and consciously it's been years and years and years, but it just takes me a second to time travel back to when Crystal was little.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no husband, there was no children, there was no life like that. But in a wink of an eye, boom, it's here. And if I don't adjust, then I need to take ownership for the holiday problems because I've not allowed for the difference.
And so again, new expectations for the new holidays, but also be, I guess, kind to yourself, if that's the right word. Is it doesn't have to be perfect. Everything doesn't have to flow on a time schedule. Just enjoy it, because we do. That is one of the things I do see a lot. I'm guilty of it. I think we're all guilty of it. We lose the moment because we're so worried about the past or the future that we forget to live in the moment.
That's profound, and it's tough. It's tough to take ownership, and it's tough to show up. You know, and it's very tough to leave your stuff outside the door before you walk in. And that's another encouragement for our listeners. We all, Rick and I, and everybody else we know, have stuff. They have a bag of stuff. And we do not need to carry that bag of stuff into the holiday moment. We need to leave it outside. And then when the holiday moment is over, pick it back up and take it with us. But we don't need to carry it inside and share our stuff. And that's another just really bad holiday moment. Sharing your stuff with everybody else, looking for them to cure it. No, the holiday season, that's not what it's for. It's to celebrate the moment, not cure the stuff.
So I would ask you to visualize wherever you do go spend the holidays. When you walk in that front door, just imagine a coat hanger there and your stuff being your coat. Just hang it on the outside of the coat hanger and leave it there till you leave.
And everybody, you'll be happier. The people you are there celebrating with will be happier because they got their stuff too. And there's the problem with holidays. Everybody's stuck in the house unloading their stuff on each other as if, well, you don't have enough stuff. You need some of my stuff. Woo, wee, buddy. Now you talk about some fun times. And then when people readily had firearms, I remember the day when people really had firearms, they were stuck in the same place with firearms. Let me tell you, that's formula for disaster. And that's going to play out this holiday. People are going to come together. Leave your stuff outside, leave your guns at home, show up, and concentrate on celebrating and being respectful. And then people are going to walk away with you're going to walk away with a great feeling, and everybody there is going to walk away with a great feeling. You know, I didn't get in anybody's stuff. Nobody got in my stuff. I didn't shoot anybody. Nobody shot me. We shared the moment. We celebrated the moment and had a great time. That's what I love to hear. And that's available to everybody out there. But you have to consciously set that up. You have to consciously communicate that. And if you do, people don't have to guess. People don't have to mind read. They know what you want, and you're willing to step in and do your part. I have seldom seen bad holidays happen out of that structure. People are happier. The people who are with them are happier, and they walk away, and it's an uplifting moment. And that's what holidays should be. It should be a time when we're uplifting each other. We're encouraging each other. We're loving each other. That's what the holidays are about, not all this other crud that's out there. And what happens is we have our expectations set for the crud. We don't do anything about the crud, and then we whine about the crud after the crud happens, which it's inevitably going to do. It's a nightmare.
And if you do enjoy wine and beer, and if that does help with some of the stress, yeah, definitely leave the guns outside.
Yeah, that's a special moment too, like guns. Yeah. People get in, they start with one drink. By the time they get to 10 drinks, buddy, I tell you, there's true fun there. Man, that's a nightmare. Nothing like the family being lit up around each other. Oh man, let me tell you, that's kerosene waiting for a flame. And when it does, there's an explosion. Oh, that's bad. Oh, I love that, Rick. That's so true. That is so true.
We would love to
In
hear.
moderation.
Yeah,
In
moderation.
moderation.
You know, when I'm thinking about it, we get a lot of views after we go off the live, and people who watch this as time permits. But again, we still would be interested in getting feedback from you if you anything you've taken away from our conversation today, and did you apply it? Did you work on your expectations? Did you work on hanging up your stuff before you went in the door? And how did it go? Because again, we're always interested in seeing, you know, what's going on with you guys out there, and we'd love to hear feedback. And how do you handle your holidays? And are you making any changes to get rid of, not get rid of, but make them
eliminate.
Yeah.
It is kind of a get rid of.
Yeah.
You just like we talked about with the stuff. There's many things like today we're talking about that we're encouraging people to leave outside the holiday moment. And it has to be conscious. It doesn't just magically happen. People say, oh, this group over here, they magically have a wonderful. No, they don't have a magically wonderful time. I'm sorry, Walt Disney's dead, and the Disney life is dead. that was never reality. Reality is people making the tough choices and having the tough conversations ahead of time, and it creating a magical moment. And that I see all the time. But I have yet to have a holiday where Walt Disney showed up at our house and brought his characters.
Yep. I don't remember him visiting either.
Yeah, I was going to be ticked if man, Disney's been over Rick's house, but he hadn't been to my house. What? That's not fair. I'm bummed, man. Where did Rick give Walt the invitation? No. He didn't show up Rick's, didn't show up mine, and has never shown up to anybody I've ever talked to. If they had a good time, they planned for the good time, they communicated the good time, they worked through the boundaries of the good time, and it delivered good time. That's what I've seen.
Yep. Now, I did hear a little bit of interesting trivia the other day. They were interviewing on one of the stations one of the directors of Pixar, some of the Pixar films. I think it was Toy Story 3, but one of the Toy Stories.
Uh-huh.
And he was telling his story about that. He got interested in filmmaking after his mother took him to go see The Shining. And he then said that's when he realized that filmmaking can be an art. It's just not about making movies. So any of you that watch Pixar films by this director, I cannot think of his name right now, but in every of his films, he puts, and first of all, Disney and Pixar has got a kind of that reputation of putting hidden meanings into their films.
Mm-hmm.
But he says if you look at any of his films, he's known for putting little things going back to The Shining. And I forgot, he talked about in one film, there's the license plate is the room number.
Creative people tear me up, man. The way their brains work. Wow, scary stuff.
And one of the scenes, it had the felt or whatever the felt was on it was the same pattern that was used in the rug in The Shining. So I don't know. We're talking about Disney, so I thought about Pixar films.
Well, it just goes to show you how Rick's mind works.
Good.
Scary stuff, folks. See, that's how his mind works. He remembers The Shining and Pixar. Woo, buddy, that's out there. That's out on the fringe. That's way to go. Never thought about that. Woo!
Yeah. And so, I guess, Roger, happy Thanksgiving to
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving,
and
Rick.
Have a great holiday. I'll be anxious to hear how it goes next week. And obviously, for everyone out there, happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving. And we would love to have you just leave a comment if you want to about how your holidays went and any questions you have or comments. We're always open to them. Like I said, I saw our new feature today, so now that we can do the chat feature with several people. Maybe
We're going to try to do the chat.
Yeah, right, yeah. So with that said, Roger, I think we
About
can
ready
wish
to
everybody-
leave the porch today?
Yeah, leave the porch, and I can find how to get off of it. Here we go.
Got to find the stairs to get off the porch.
Close something up. And yeah, so we will see everybody next Tuesday. And for those that watch after we go live, again, you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.